Today we're going to look at writing equations in slope-intercepts and standard form. Last class we looked at point-slope, and we're just going to review some of the equations that we've learned so far. So the first one that we're going to look at is the slope formula. We talked about this last class. Remember, that's m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Remember, I said that's something you're going to need to memorize, so the more we write it down and practice it, the more it'll get stuck there. Okay, the next one we talked about this in our last unit, and you've seen this one before, slope-intercept form, is y equals mx plus b. Okay, and that's one of the things we're going to focus on today is our slope-intercept form. And just a reminder from last class, our point-slope form. Okay, our point-slope form said y minus y1 is equal to mx minus x1. Okay, we've seen all of these before, so now we're looking at how to write them given different pieces of information. And just to review again, we have mentioned this in our last unit, but it's something we don't see that often. Standard form is ax plus by equals c, where a, b, and c are integers. Okay, we really don't like to have fractions when it comes to standard form. Okay. So example 1 says write an equation in slope-intercept form. So I like to write it here what that one is, y equals mx plus b, just to help me remember it. So here I've got an m, and because the x is 0, this is actually my b. So my b is equal to negative 3. So when I write this equation, I can write y equals 1/2 x minus 3. So if you're given a point and a slope and the point has 0 as its x value, that's actually your y-intercept, and you don't have to do a lot more work than just inserting it into the equation. Now for the next one, it says write the following equation in slope-intercept form. Again, I'm just going to write that above it. It's good to just get in the habit of writing it. That way you know what your end goal should look like. So my equation at the end should look like that. So I want to write this in slope-intercept form. The key part there is I want to have it say y equals. So if I look at mine here, this says y minus 6. So one of the key things I need to do is have that say y equals. And notice here my equation for y equals mx plus b does not include the parentheses that we have here. So the first thing I'm going to do actually is get rid of these parentheses. So to do that, I'm going to distribute my 4 to both terms. So I've got y minus 6 equals 4x minus 12. Okay. And then like I said, we don't want to have this y minus 6 here. So I'm going to add 6 to both sides. 6 is like terms with the 12. Be careful. 6 does not have an x, so I can't add it to the 4. So I get y equals, and that's what I'm looking for, 4x negative 12 plus 6 gives me negative 6. And there is my equation in slope-intercept form. Okay, let's take a look at our next example. This one says write the following equation in the given form. So now we're going to take 2 steps. You notice here I'm given my slope and my point. This one's different. If we look at the point here, it's different than the point I was given for this one. If you notice this one, remember my x was 0. But for this one, my x is negative 2. Remember, this is my x and this is my y. I can put x1, y1, just like we did last class for those. Okay, so I'm going to write it in point-slope form first. So remember my point-slope form is y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. And remember, we're going to replace, all we're doing with this formula is replacing y1, m, and x1. Everything else stays the same. So I'm going to do y minus, because that's the start of my formula, my y1, which is 3, equals my m, which was 2, x minus, again that's in my formula, and my x1 here is negative 2. Remember this from last time, if it's negative I want to put it in parentheses. So I get y minus 3 is equal to 2x plus 2. There's my point slope form. Okay? And then from there, I can write it in slope-intercept form. Remember slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. So I'm going to copy it down, this same equation right here, y minus 3 equals 2x plus 2. Now I'm going to do the same thing I did before. Remember, I want to get rid of my parentheses. So I'm going to distribute the 2 to both terms. Y minus 3 is equal to 2x plus 4. And I don't want to have this minus 3 here, so I'm going to add 3 to both sides. And y equals 2x plus 7. Again, be careful that 3 gets added to the 4, not the 2x. Those are your like terms. So when we're asked to put something in the equation of slope-intercept form and we're given a slope and a point, we have to make a pit stop here at point slope first. You can't go straight from here to here. You have to make a stop at point slope first. Okay, so that's going to be important. Later on, it's not going to be in the directions to go to point slope and then to slope intercept, but that's what you're going to need to do. Okay. All right, so this one, if you look at example 4, it says write the following equation in the given form, and we're going to use the points -2, 3, and 4, -9. If you remember from last class, when we gave 2 points, we have to find our slope first. So here's my x1, y1, and my x2, y2. Okay. You need to look back at your notes on the front page. We talked about the slope formula here, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I'm going to do -9 minus 3 over 4 minus a -2. This gives me -12 over 4 plus 2, -12 over 6, which is -2. Okay. So now, again, it's point slope form. Remember, that's my y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. And I'm replacing y1, m, and x1. So here I'm going to do y minus, okay, so here you have a choice. I can choose this first point or the second point. I like to choose the first point. So I'm going to do y minus my y1, which is 3, equals my m, which I just found, -2, x minus my x1, which is -2. This one's going to be y minus 3 equals -2, x plus 2. All right, so slope-intercept form here. Again, I'm going to copy it down. Y minus 3 equals -2, x plus 2. And my slope-intercept form has to look like y equals mx plus b. So I'm going to go ahead and distribute that. Y minus 3 equals -2x minus 4. Plus 3 to both sides. Y is equal to -2x minus 1. -4 plus 3 to -1. So that one, yes, does have a lot of steps. Okay, this is about as complicated as it's going to get, going from 2 points all the way down to slope-intercept form. Okay, this is probably the most difficult type of problem you'll encounter, but it's all stuff that you know how to do. So you just want to remember these steps and use your notes as a reference. The last thing we're going to do is write equations in standard form. So if you remember, your standard form said ax plus by equals c. Okay, so the key thing here is we like to have ax and by. You have to have a and y on the you have to have x and y on the same side. So if we look at this example right here, I've got y equals. This one is in slope-intercept form, and I want to put it in standard form. So we're going to move it back. Minus 4x. We're going to move this 4x to the other side. So I get negative 4x plus y is equal to negative 6. Now, we could be done, except we really don't like to have a negative a. So what we're going to do is multiply the whole thing by negative 1. When I do that, I'm going to multiply every term by negative 1. All that does is change all the signs. Negative 1 times negative 4 becomes a positive 4x. Negative 1 times this plus 1x becomes minus 1y is equal to a negative 6 times a negative 1 becomes a positive 6. So we do like if your a turns out to be, if a is negative, we're going to multiply by negative 1. Okay, the whole thing gets multiplied by negative 1, okay, not just one term. All right, our last example here, the only difference is we also, if you remember back, we don't like fractions, but we're going to do the same thing here. I have negative 1/2 x. I want to have the x and y on the same side, so I'm going to add 1/2 x to both sides. So I get 1/2 x plus y equals negative 4. Again, you would be done, except we don't like to have fractions. So for this one, we're going to multiply the whole thing by the denominator. So we're going to multiply it by 2. So what happens first is these 2's will cancel. For the first one, everything gets multiplied by 2. So this 2 will cancel. I get 1x plus, remember there's a 1 there, 1 times 2, 2y equals 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. Okay. So we've looked at 3 types of equations. Okay, so just in your summary, at the bottom, we have 3 types of equations. Okay, and we're asked to go from one to the other. Make sure you read the directions and look at what you're given. Okay. All right, please use your notes to practice, and we will take an exit ticket at the end of class.